Was Lando Norris's commanding Brazilian Grand Prix weekend enough to push Max Verstappen out of the Drivers' Championship conversation? My three takeaways following the Brazil Grand Prix, and I gotta say to that first one, no, it wasn't. And I still feel that Max Verstappen still in title contention, even though the odds are a little more heavily stacked against him. At the end of this one, Lando Norris even said that if Max Verstappen had qualified a little bit higher up on the grid, he probably would have went on to win the Brazil Grand Prix. That's just how much pace that Max and the Red Bull Racing machine had. Norris also went on to talk about just how difficult Vegas is going to be and that Max Verstappen is still a threat in this Drivers' Championship battle. To give you a little bit of context about what he means by Las Vegas, if you go back to last year, McLaren really struggled there. And a big part of why they struggled there was because of the graining on the tire and not being able to control that. It was McLaren's worst circuit on the entire calendar last season. Heard from team principal of McLaren, Andrea Stella, following this one. He echoed a lot of what Lando Norris was talking about when it came to that. And a big part that Stella felt was trying to understand from all the data that they had collected from Vegas last season how to make themselves and their car better. He feels that they have done that, but it also comes down to where is everyone else in the pecking order? Because usually when one team takes a step, another team takes a step. And so if everyone's doing that as the season carries on, then by the time you get to Vegas, you're probably going to be right back where you started last season. Yes, you may be a little bit quicker, but everyone else has taken a step as well, and you have to try and overstep them. And that's a very difficult thing to do when you're trying to compete against each other at these different types of racetracks. The main thing is, for McLaren, you don't want to keep hearing about Max Verstappen in the championship battle and fighting him for this title. McLaren is going to have to outperform Verstappen and Red Bull Racing in Las Vegas if they want to push him out of this Drivers' Championship conversation. Because look, Mercedes is going to be competitive in Vegas, and so too will Max Verstappen and Red Bull Racing. Let's move on to point number 3. I got my notes here beside me. Was Oscar Piastri's 10-second penalty for causing a collision with Kimi Antonelli too harsh? Was it too harsh? Yeah, I felt it was a little too harsh. I mean, look, for me, a lot of it has to come down to the driving standard guidelines, which essentially the drivers and the FIA work together to come up with, so that when penalties are handed out, there's a lot more transparency to it. One of the things that's in there that it talks about is if your front axle is alongside your competitor's front mirror, well, the only mirror on the car, but at the front of their car, that mirror, if your front axle is alongside it, when you're battling each other, heading into a turn, getting towards the apex. And for this particular battle, was it the lockup that really led to the stewards making their decision? It was a little bit of that, but it was also having to do with those driving standard guidelines. And my issue with it all is that it's so hard to judge being a former driver. I mean, look, these guys are rocketing down towards turn 1 here in Brazil at like 300 kilometers an hour, getting heavy onto the brakes, trying to send one down the inside, trying to keep your eyes fixated on the apex while you're trying to give yourself enough room from your competitor so you don't make contact. So you're already having to juggle quite a bit as a racing driver. And the thing is that I think the drivers in the FIA, they need to go back, they need to revisit this, they need to open it up and have a conversation and come up with something that's a little bit better, a little different, because at the moment, it's extremely hard to measure. Even team principal Andrea Stella of McLaren, he even felt that it was a little bit too harsh as well. What happened on that restart with Kimi Antonelli? So I heard from Antonelli at the end of this race, and essentially for him, he caught a damp patch, got some wheel spin, and Lando took off, and it was hard for him to kind of keep up because of that damp patch, wheel spin, etc. And so you have Charles Leclerc and you have Oscar Piastri that are bearing down on you. And for Kimi Antonelli, he's trying to defend his position. Of course, any driver would have. I would have done everything that Antonelli would have done as well. And for Piastri, look, if you see a gap, you go for it. That's just the way it is. And I would have done what Piastri would have done. And I would have done what Charles Leclerc would have done. If anything, it looks more like a racing incident to me. The fact of the matter is, sticking with Piastri, is that I said on SportsCenter on Friday, the Piastri needed to get off to a good start and have a solid weekend in Brazil so he could work on just getting back to the Oscar Piastri that was, kicking a lot of butt mid-season during this year. And I felt that Friday went really well for him. And I thought that, he was on track to get back to where he was. He'd spent some time in the factory the week prior, talking to engineers, working in the sim, trying to figure out where he's gone wrong, where has he lost the confidence in the car, trying to understand the car a lot more when it's sliding around underneath him, because that is one of the issues as well. And I think for Piastri, once Saturday hit, once he crashed out, qualifying not the greatest, and then in this race, getting that penalty, everything kind of stacked against him. I don't think it was one of his better weekends, and I think for Vegas, next race up, he's going to have to outperform Lando Norris, going to have to get back to doing what he was doing mid-season this year if he wants to have a shot at winning this driver's title, because it is going to be very difficult for him from here on out. If Miami sprint pole was the first career Kimi Antonelli moment, then was Sunday the first sign of his ability to fight other elite drivers? Yes, I think so. Can't forget about Canada as well. That was a great performance from Antonelli at the same time. And I'm going to mix in what happened in Canada to what happened here as well. I heard from team principal of Mercedes, Toto Wolff, following this one, and he felt that, quote, maybe pressure is not as high as some of the European circuits, and then the execution was faultless at the end, and being able to fight off Max on a newer and softer tire, that was really strong and a testament to what's to come. I think that when Mercedes switched over the suspension on Kimi Antonelli and George Russell's car in and around Canada, that really affected his confidence following the Canadian Grand Prix. You really saw that dip from him. It wasn't the greatest. And I think when they decided to change that suspension back for Antonelli, you started to see that confidence start to come back for himself and really improve incrementally as the races moved along. I thought he's done a nice job of bouncing back. It is really tough to be a rookie in Formula One, especially a rookie at Mercedes. And I think the team and Antonelli have worked really well together to sort of get him back to where he was back in Miami, back in Canada as well. Toto also said, quote, let's keep both feet on the ground. He was second, defended off Max today. That was very impressive, but we want to win races and fight for championships. So no pressure, Kimi, no pressure. I thought Antonelli did a really nice job of holding Max Verstappen back. The defense from Kimi was really impressive, harvesting the energy, knowing when to deploy the battery against Max so he didn't get easily overtaken at any point. Whenever Max was the last 3 laps darting out to break Kimi's concentration, to pretend like he was going to send one down the inside at turn 4 or turn 1. Antonelli didn't flinch at all, actually. Very cool under pressure. I thought he did a really, really good job this weekend. Let's see how it goes for him in Las Vegas. Mercedes should be really strong there. That's the next race up, and we'll be there, boots on the ground. So we're going to have a ton of content coming out on tsn.ca, on YouTube, on SportsCenter, all throughout the Las Vegas Grand Prix week. So keep it tuned in to here, and we'll talk to you all then.